Good evening and welcome to the 2020 Cincinnati Labor Council's COPE event. My name is Denise Dalvera, a proud SAG-AFTRA card holder and past CLC board recording secretary. This year, we have no fancy venue, no food, no cocktails. Hopefully, we will next year. In the meantime, we are here virtually with the help of Mills James Production Studios in Columbus, Ohio. I'm with President Bill Fraley and CLC Executive Secretary Treasurer Pete McClendon, and all of you tuning in from your devices. We have a lot to show you tonight, the people behind what make this organization run in order to keep us all focused on working families. COPE stands for Committee on Political Education. And it is this one time of year to help fund your local labor council staff and their yearly expenses, including overhead, printing, supplies, bandwidth, and the nuts and bolts that really keep the labor council moving and keep us all on the same page for working families. Here's how tonight will work. Each tier of participation will have a start time and opportunity to visit and/or participate with one or more 3 VIP session discussions. The first session is at 6 p.m., and you will be chatting with Denise Driehaus, Alicia Reese, and Aftab Pureval. Stay tuned or join session 2, 6:20, with Judge Jennifer Bruner, Judge John P. O'Donnell, and Ginger Bach. Stay on or join for the last VIP session, which will start at 6:40 with John Ryan, Amy McGrath, and Kate Schroeder. We will hear from many labor leaders and special guests tonight. You will also have the opportunity to win a signed American Factory poster from local Academy Award-winning filmmakers Julia Reichert and Stephen Bogner, who won the Oscar last year for American Factory. We're going to be giving away 4 of these posters at the end of the evening to one of our unions watching tonight. Well, all 4 unions watching tonight. This year, the documentary film 9 to 5, The Story of a Movement, is about women clerical workers and their struggle to organize in the 60s and 70s. It also inspired the comedy film of the same name, 9 to 5. So after the event, if you stay logged in, you're going to get to view the new film before it even hits festivals and then goes on to distribution to the wider public. How cool is that? So with all of that said, it's going to be a full evening, and I'll be playing a little bit of a referee tonight to kind of keep us moving. It's also the first virtual COPE event, and like everything else, we appreciate your patience as we lean heavily on technology tonight. Okay, let's now move into our first breakout discussion with Denise Driehaus, Alicia Reese, and Aftab Pureball. Welcome, Denise Driehaus, Alicia Reese, and Aftab Pureball.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
Hi. Hello. So our first question is from Rick Fisher from IBEW Local 212.
Hey, Rick.
Okay. So here we go. This is fun, isn't it? Would you like me to read the question? Okay, we're going to go.
You should. I think Fish is little stage fright.
Okay. Let's go to Kate Bishop, SEIU, Local 1199. Kate?
Oh, no.
If you could unmute yourselves, that would be so great.
Rick, you're muted.
Kay, are you there? Okay. Would you like me to read the question?
I think you should, yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and read it. Okay, why don't we start with Rick Fisher's question, if that's okay? Over the past 4 years, the intergovernmental relationship between Hamilton County and the city of Cincinnati was and has had many high points and low points. As Hamilton County elected leaders, what will you do to find more common ground and build stronger connections between the county and the city? Who would like to take that question first?
I can go first if you'd like.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Great.
Well, first and foremost, it's really my honor to be here with you all tonight virtually. And thank you so much for your creativity to bring the community together. We meet tonight at a critical moment in our nation's history. We stand at a precipice. Donald Trump's lies and misjudgments have cost us 200,000 of our fellow Americans. That public health crisis has coincided with an economic crisis. And like with everything else in this country, that crisis is not being felt equally. Working families have been on the front lines since the pandemic began. They bagged our groceries, kept our plumbing and heating working, moved our goods along our roads. They never stopped working. As they have always been, our brothers and sisters in labor proved to be essential. And we need to honor our essential heroes, not just with our words, but with our actions. That's why we need to elect pro-labor candidates up and down the ballot right here in Hamilton County. I've been proud to stand with you as your clerk of courts by offering comprehensive paid family leave, paying employees a living wage, and paying them hero pay. I will always stand with our working families, and I'm just so excited for tonight's conversation. And specifically to Fisher, thanks so much for the question. Look, there's no question that we need to work together to move our region forward. And there's a lot of ways we've done that, and we are doing that. I'll just give you a couple of examples. My office has worked with Council Member Landsman and Commissioner Driehaus and others to help create an eviction help center at the clerk's office, where organizations that are funded by both the city and the county for emergency rental assistance can work in the courthouse to help people facing eviction. That partnership is literally keeping people safe in their homes, and particularly during a pandemic when public health officials are telling us to stay home. That's critically important, not just for the landlord and tenants, but for all of us. I've also talked with PG Sittenfeld about doing some work on affordable housing and landlord tenant outreach. And I'm excited about what that partnership can achieve. The city and county are doing important work on racism as a public health crisis as well, which I'm sure Commissioner Driehaus will talk about. But I think, honestly, the larger answer to your question is that there have been some challenges in this area. And frankly, they just need to stop. Too much is at stake. We have an opportunity to make historic gains in the county and the city, to have progressive leadership up and down the ballot. So we need to work together on behalf of the working families to get things done. President Truman once said, it's amazing what you can do when you don't care who gets the credit. We need to work together. We need to be selfless, and we need to get things done for the people in this community. It's that simple, and I'm committed to doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Aftab. Thank you so much. Alicia, would you like to add anything to that?
Well, yeah, I just want to add, first of all, I am excited and thankful to be here. I'm usually seeing everyone in person and look forward to the COPE dinners, and we're doing it now in a new way, in a virtual way, but it's important that we come together now more than ever. I come from a family legacy in the labor movement. My grandfather, who was in the postal union, and he taught me really how important unions are. And I had a chance as a little girl to be marching on the front lines. Had no idea that at this age and running for Hamilton County Commissioner after being the vice mayor and a state representative, that we're still in the fight for working families. And so it is critical right now, like no other time in history except during the 60s, when Dr. King and A. Philip Randolph and Union and the African American community came together with the March on Washington for voting rights. And Dr. King went to Memphis and died trying to fight for workers. And we are at that critical moment now. It's no longer in the history books for us to read about. We're making the history today. With that being said, certainly it's very important that we work together because resources are limited. And one of the things I've had the unique opportunity to have a lot of experience being both a vice mayor of the city of Cincinnati, and I was very proud to serve as the vice mayor, and then being at the state level, being a state representative, and both being on both finance committees. Stood up for labor when they were trying to privatize the jobs at the city, and then went to the state and stood up against SB 5. And so having that experience, I think I can bring a bridge to the county that maybe might be a little unique, because I understand both levels of government, but I also understand at the end of the day, it's about serving the people. It's about serving working families. And if we don't do it together, limited resources, we will not be able to survive. So that's why I'm running on one hand.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh.
I'm so sorry. You can finish the thought.
That's okay. AFTAB took like 15 minutes of my time, but whatever he said, great.
I know,
great.
and time is going to be tricky.
I love it. I agree with him.
Oh, let's move this to Denise Driehaus.
Yeah, I won't
next
take but
question.
a minute, but thanks, like everybody else, thanks for having us. The COPE dinner is always so much fun, and it's so important that we gather and support one another. So I hope you guys notice my mood lighting. The sun is starting to set already, so that's my mood lighting going on. So thanks for the question, Rick. So while we do have some disagreements with the city and some challenges, particularly related to the banks and MSD, I want to point out that the one the top issue with MSD, with the city, is also the county's top issue, and that's preserving the city's workforce and the city's retirement system. And so we share in that concern, and it's taking longer than we had hoped to get to a plan. We did agree to one, remember, but the state didn't allow us to move forward. So we did agree on something, but now we're back to the drawing board. But there are other examples of us cooperating with one another. The pre-arrest diversion program, which we're piloting with CPD right now. The county got a grant, so we're working with them. The Millennium, we recognize as a huge economic development project that we need to come together on. We're working hard on the census, trying to get folks to fill out the census. We've got a rolling deadline right now. I don't know if you guys know, we've had a little bit of a change. Hopefully we do get this extra month, but if we don't, the deadline's Wednesday. And I think John and I are gonna go stand on the Western Hills Viaduct on Monday to drive the point home that we need this money, especially for infrastructure. And then we've got some joint investments, as AFTAB said, with the port, with Ready for economic development. And don't forget SORTA, where we have city and county appointees working together, and we all supported the SORTA levy to try to create a more robust regional transit system. So there are many occasions where we have come together. I don't think they get a lot of attention in the press because they're not very sexy. But the fact of the matter is we agree probably more than we disagree. And let's not forget COVID and how we have tried to work very hard with the city and the county together to try to keep folks safe in our community. And when the county got the funding from the federal government and the city did not get a direct allocation, we took $17 million and gave it to the city to try to help plug their budget deficit. So there's a lot of cooperation going on. We do have some issues, but in the end, we're working hard at trying to work together.
Wonderful. Thank you, Denise, so much. Thank you all. We have a couple more questions ready to go. How are we doing on time? I'm going to talk to the woman in my ear. Okay, we have 5 minutes left in this segment, so you can see how quickly we need to answer these questions. And
hey,
it's
I
not
want to go
fair.
first on the next notice. I'm just
So
Yeah, I better shut up for the rest of the segment.
I wasn't going to say anything, AFTAB, but you know, really, you were fantastic, by the way. I just wish we had more time. It's not your fault. But let's go ahead to Kay Bishop. Kay, are you there? Can you give your question? I'm not hearing her. So I'm going to go ahead and read this. And why don't we pick one of you to answer the question? Whoever goes first gets to answer it, but please be brief if you can. Kay's question is, as leaders, what steps will you initiate to ensure the safety, diversity, and inclusiveness of the Hamilton County workforce so that all workers are treated with dignity and respect? Who would like to take that?
Not me.
I was going to let Alicia go on this one.
Alicia, you go.
First. Well, I mean, Denise probably could give you more on the actual stats. For me, diversity is so important, and it's even more critical now. When I was at the city, we had an issue with diversity in terms of women and African Americans being promoted. They couldn't get promoted. And so one of the things we want to make sure in our workforce is that we are actually having opportunities for not only the promotion, but also for decision-making positions. We want to make sure that as the county grows, we know that women-owned businesses are fastest growing. We know women and diverse people are moving. We're in a global society. And so I think with Denise and AFTAB, all three of us agree that diversity is critical, both inside of Hamilton County leadership, throughout the county. And then a lot of people don't know what we do as a county, as government officials, it spills over into the private sector as well. And so I'm really interested in a time where we have to bounce back and rebuild our county, as other counties are going to have to do because of COVID-19, that we show people how to do it by showing the diversity and the abilities that we have, both coming from within the ranks, but also moving up to decision-making positions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Alicia. Great answer. The final question, and how many minutes do I have? And Justin Phillips can ask. Okay, great. Justin, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so AFTAB, be quiet. Okay. Just teasing. This question will be directed toward toward Denise and also to Alicia. You know, and first, before I could ask my question, you know, I want to thank Denise personally for everything she has done so far, especially for us old private sector construction unions. You know, Denise took the initiative and took everything. We have not only one, but two project labor agreements going on in the county for the first time in my memory, which is 25 years. So in that vein, you know, in 2018, we won a major victory with the U.S. Sixth Circuit Court, upholding the city's responsible bidder ordinance. And, you know, that ordinance required bidders on publicly funded projects to have not only valid apprenticeship programs, but health and retirement plans for their workers, for those contractors that bid on that work, just like we provide that for the city and also for the county workers. If elected, Alicia, or re-elected, obviously, for Denise, will you support similar legislation, whether it be a county-wide responsible bidder ordinance and or a county-wide blanket type project labor agreement language? Thank you.
So let me go, I'll go quickly. So the answer is yes. And we have done, as you say, the community benefits agreement / PLA on 2 projects already. The other thing that I think to remember is that it does take the project itself and the money to do the project to get going to begin with. And so the county has done a pretty good job of collecting money in the parking revenue fund. These are restricted funds, and the hotel motel tax to try to promote development so that we have the opportunity to put a community benefits agreement on a project, right? So it's really a 2-prong approach. And I think, and you're right, we've never had a PLA on anything in Hamilton County. So I was proud to support that, and I will continue to support policies of the county that make sure that people get paid a decent wage and that are fair to all the folks that work on those work sites.
Okay. We have 1 minute left. Alicia, do you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I just add, I'm, you know, looking forward to working on that. I have been a big proponent and supporter of the apprenticeship programs and even pushing it even when I came out of office, trying to get more people involved in that. And so certainly something that will help us have people have good benefits, be able to reinvest in the economy. So yes, I look forward to working on that and other issues with your local as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, panel. I really, really appreciate that. We all do. It was a short time, but it was very important, and we so appreciate you being here. We're going to move on now to our second breakout. We have Jennifer Bruner, John P. O'Donnell, and Ginger Bach. We don't have John on the line, but we do have Jennifer and Ginger. Okay, welcome, Jennifer. Welcome, Ginger.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you so much. We have a question from Bill Benner from UFCW Local 75 about judicial reform. Bill, are you there?
I am. Good evening, everybody. Thank you guys for joining us. My question is, I think, very relevant to a lot of things going on today. Many folks believe that criminal justice reform is desperately needed here in Ohio and across our country to address systemic issues, including racial inequities, disproportionate and biased prison sentences, prison overcrowding, policing reform, and juvenile justice reform. As judges, what have you done and what will you do to promote criminal justice reform in Ohio?
Would you like for me to start with that one?
I would.
All right, thank you. And thank you so much for the question, Bill. My background includes 5 years as a common pleas court judge in Franklin County, as well as 4 years as Ohio Secretary of State, and then more than 5 years on the 10th District Court of Appeals here in Franklin County. Judge O'Donnell just sent me a message that he's trying to join, but he's having problems because it's requesting a password. So maybe you can get in touch with him. But I'll go on to that. My time as a common pleas court judge, I started the adult felony drug court, which is called the TIES program, Treatment is Essential to Success. Also, in that, it really worked. We started as a pilot program. And in doing so, before I left the court to run for Secretary of State, we actually created permanent rules. And 14 years, actually 16 years later, it's still in operation today. Much of it's changed in terms of they're dealing with so much more with heroin addiction, and they have more federal grants than the money that we had at the time. But it was the most rewarding work that I did. And oftentimes for people going through my court, I was their social capital. I was, in some people's instances, I was the first person who really cared about what happened to them in their lives. And being a person in authority and sitting up a little higher in a judge's robe, I think that meant a lot to them. And I'm glad that it's still in continuation today. Part of what I did in that process was to also teach and become certified to teach classes regarding poverty. Poverty disproportionately hits people of color, but we were trying to show them how they could write their own future story, and do so with the middle class people who were working with them, who didn't always communicate in a way that they were used to. And it wasn't without saying, oh, you should be middle class, but if you want to write your own future story, here's what you have to understand about the system. At the same time, I taught law and ethics to law enforcement officers, which included police officers on the street, probation officers, and parole officers. And I think Judge O'Donnell just got in, which is great. You know, my work on the 10th District Court of Appeals, I appreciate the experience I've had at starting and operating that drug court. It was used as a model in how to start a drug court throughout the state by the Ohio Supreme Court. I worked closely with them at the time. And if I'm elected, I will be the first judge to have actually operated a drug court to hold office before the Ohio Supreme Court. And that gives you insight into things like expungement. So if someone has turned around their lives and they want a chance to get that felony off their record and they're eligible, that it's interpreted in such a way that it's not working against them, but for them, for the betterment of themselves, their family, and their community. And also the Bridges Out of Poverty curriculum that I spoke about, my employees in the Secretary of State's office who worked on the line with people coming in from the public were trained in that as well. I could go on longer, but I know our time is short. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, we're happy to have John with us, it sounds like. Am I right about that?
I am
Okay,
here.
good.
Thank you.
Hi, John. So sorry about that. Why don't we have Tim Burke give you the next question?
Sure.
We're going to just hit the ground running. He's from mainly Burke Law Firm. This is about voting Ohio judicial races. Tim?
Let me say, first of all, that Jennifer left out something very important. She's one of the national winners of the John F. Kennedy Profiles and Courage Award for her work in protecting voting rights. That needs to be always recognized. But I'd like to ask the two judges and our candidate for the Court of Appeals to talk about why courts, and particularly our local courts, are so important for union families, and how do we convince both union families and our local voters to vote all the way down the ballot for the judicial candidates.
Tim, let me jump in. This is O'Donnell. First of all, I apologize for not having video on. I am on the road. I have a conflict, and you don't want to see me driving a car. Second thing.
We hope you're pulled over and you're safe.
I am, but I'm not exactly presentable. So I want to give two quick examples for why the Supreme Court is important to working people. And these come from decisions endorsed by both Judge Bruner and my opponents. First, very recently, the Ohio Supreme Court said it is okay to have someone from your company watch while you go to the bathroom to produce a urine sample for a random drug test. Now, what happened here was the company, like many do, was administering random drug tests. And by the way, these were not drug tests on suspicion of actually being high or otherwise on drugs. They were sort of random in the course of business. And they had the employees sign a form that said, I consent to being watched while I produce a sample. They called this the direct observation method. And the Ohio Supreme Court said, well, there was a lawsuit filed. The Ohio Supreme Court said, that's not an invasion of your privacy because you signed a form agreeing to let them watch you urinate. But you know what? They signed that form when the option was to be fired. So that is not a free choice. And the Ohio Supreme Court says that workers don't have the dignity to be able to, and not to mention the trust, but let's keep it on dignity, to be able to produce an actual real urine sample without being watched by their employer. Second, a couple of years ago, both of our opponents signed on to this decision saying you cannot collect workers' comp for PTSD unless that PTSD arose from the actual physical injury you had and not necessarily the anguish of your situation. In this case, a guy was driving a truck, a huge truck. He was rear-ended, and the car that rear-ended him basically submerged under his truck. And the driver lay there dying in a ghastly fashion in front of the driver. Now, the driver had some minor injuries, I think some neck and back type injuries, nothing huge, but he had PTSD, as you can imagine, from watching this person breathe their last breath in front of him while he was powerless to do anything. And the Ohio Supreme Court said, no, no, no. We want to have some assurance that your PTSD is real, so it's got to be related to the physical injury that you might have, not to some non-physical injury. So those are two real examples, and there are others, but those spring to mind,
Okay.
where the High Supreme Court has said workers, they gave workers a short shrift. Let me just put it that way.
Okay.
I might be over my time. I'm sorry for taking so long.
That's okay. We have 10 minutes left in the segment. So did anybody else want to jump on that question and answer it as well? Or should we move on?
I can jump in. Just
Okay.
very-
Ginger, please. Yes.
Yeah. So just very briefly, people who aren't attorneys or aren't real engaged don't necessarily know that when there's legislation, it's judges who determine whether that legislation is constitutional, and it's judges who interpret the meaning of legislation. So when there are anti-labor laws that come out, the people who are sitting on the bench, you want to have people, and judges obviously and candidates can't make pledges how they're going to rule on something, but you want people there who at least understand labor issues, who take the time to read up, and who have had experience with working families, and who care about people in the community. So I think it's really important that people take a look at their judges and their candidates and know where they're coming from, know whether they are endorsed by labor organizations, and really research who they are. Unfortunately, there's a lot of undervote when it comes to judicial races, and getting people to vote all the way down the ballot is essential to making sure that our bench does have people who are willing to take the time to understand labor issues.
Great points. Well, yes, well said. Thank you, Ginger. We don't have Lee Denny, but he has a question for the panel. Lee is from IUPAT Painters District Council 6, and his question is, what is your opinion on the issue of whether Ohio should continue to elect its judges, move to a court system with appointed judges, or adopt a hybrid modified system? Who would like to take that?
This is O'Donnell. I can jump in if nobody minds.
Go ahead.
Okay.
So, well, the first things first. Electing judges is in Ohio's Constitution, and it's a little harder to change that than to change a statute. It's not as hard as changing the federal Constitution, but the point is, whatever our opinions are, we're probably stuck with it for a while. I must say that I vacillate on this question, but I think I've come down on the notion that especially in 2020, we might as well have judicial elections for this reason. Look at Washington, D.C. this week for just the latest example and most egregious one of how politicized the federal bench, where the judges are appointed, has become. There is no question in my mind that judges are seen by political actors as, I hate to say this, political pawns and political appointees. And as we're seeing that play out this week with Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death. So the way I look at it is, you can get good judges by appointment. You can get good judges by election. By the same token, you can get bad ones by appointment and bad ones by election. If we're going to have lousy judges because either they're incapable or they're partisan, because if you're a partisan, you're a lousy judge. If we're going to have them, we might as well have nobody ourselves as voters to blame. To see what's happening in Washington now really is dispiriting. So I think, at least from my observation, and there are some flaws to voting, no question, but I think we should have the people install their judges.
Thank you. Thank you, John. And Ginger, do you have anything to add to that?
Agree. When it comes to voting, it does trouble me that the majority of people who contribute to a campaign are attorneys that appear before the judge. That troubles me. But that being said, I am in deep mourning about the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She is my hero, and I'm very, very sad about it. And that really drives home to me how important it is for the people to have a say in who the judges are.
Wonderful. Thank you. So with how many minutes do we have left in this segment, Kate? Okay, we've got 6 minutes left. So why don't we give two? Yes, if anybody has a question, you can raise your hand. We'll unmute you. Otherwise, we can go ahead and just give about a minute and a half to each. So let's start with Ginger. Do you have anything that is bubbling up that you want us to know, that you want us to understand?
Well, first of all, I am very, very grateful for all of the labor support that I've had both this year and in 2018. It really means a lot to me. My grandfather was a UAW member, and it was from the time I was a very little girl. It was always told my parents, made sure to tell me how important union membership was to my family. And even though neither of my parents were union members, my grandfather's legacy lives on in me. So I appreciate all of the support that I have gotten. And I just really want to encourage everybody to make sure that you remind people that judges are not identified by party on the ballot. I can't tell you the number of times, even when I've been standing outside a poll, which I've done pretty much every year since I was about 20, where people have come out and said, I didn't know that the judges weren't identified by party. So anyway, please just make sure that people understand that, and encourage people to vote all the way down the ballot. This year, to me,
Great.
Here in Hamilton County, we have a real opportunity. There are 13 local seats up and then the 2 Supreme Court seats up. We can make a huge difference in the face of justice here in Hamilton County.
Great point. So I think we just have John left. So John, do you have any parting thoughts? Anything that you would like to say?
Yes, I do, real quickly. First, Tim Burke, hello, good to hear from you again. Second, thank you for having me on here and tolerating my my not appearing visually. Third, I think that you and I, the people on this call and me, have something in common, and that is that nothing is more important than our families. In fact, the reason I have a conflict tonight is I have a family thing going on. But I pledge, when I'm on the Ohio Supreme Court, to treat Ohio's working families as if they were my own. And I pledge to listen to and decide cases as if I'm ruling on the issues involving members of my own family. And I think that is a way to keep grounded and to keep the important things in mind when making some of these meaningful decisions for all Ohioans. So I'm asking the people on this call to vote for Judge John P. O'Donnell for the Ohio Supreme Court. And I'm also thanking the people on this call for the great support I've already had from the AFL-CIO at the state level and many of the local unions around the state. Appreciate you having me.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, John. Wonderful. And I do understand Jennifer is not with us, so we can't. Oh, Pete, do you have a question? You have something to say? Yes.
Good evening, Denise. Not a question. I just want to make a comment.
Oh, yeah, I think you're on
I've
mute.
been-
Are you on mute? Oh, he is on. Sorry.
So I've lived in Cincinnati since 2006, and I must say the judicial slate we have from the Common Pleas Court all the way up to the Supreme Court, we have the most qualified, diverse, inclusive slate I've ever seen in Hamilton County. I think this is a real opportunity. I don't know with what's going on in the country and what's going on in our area. This is a true opportunity if we want true justice reform, starting with the prosecutor's office, the sheriff's office, all the way down to the clerks and the judges. We have a real opportunity in Hamilton County to make an impact. And I strongly encourage all unions and working families to stand behind our judicial slate. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. And Bill, did you want anything to say, Bill?
Just that the support that working members and their families have given to the judicial candidates since I've been in office here always makes me feel good, because I feel like we do a good job of educating our members on who the judicial candidates are that come to us and understand labor's issues in a way that a lot of folks don't understand them or choose not to get educated on. But I always feel like the candidates that we support here at the Hamilton County Democratic Party and through the AFL-CIO have a great idea of what our issues are, and that we don't want anything more than what is due to every American citizen, and that's the right and the ability to make a decent living and raise our families to be able to be contributing members of society. So we appreciate that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, thank you for that panel number 2. I think we're now moving on to panel number 3. And this will be our final breakout. We have John Ryan, Amy McGrath, and Kate Schroeder. I would like to welcome you, John Ryan, Amy McGrath, and Kate Schroeder. We have about 20 minutes, I believe. So we're going to go ahead with the first question from Julie Sellers. She is from the Cincinnati Federation of Teachers, Local 1520. Julie, take it away.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Denise,
Hi,
it
Julie.
was so exciting to see you. So my question this evening is for Sherrod Brown, and it really involves
Julie,
helping.
Sherrod, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Sherrod could not be with us.
I know it, but he'll get the question right.
Okay, go ahead then.
Okay, so as you know, the U.S. House passed the HEROES Act in mid-May, which was expanding unemployment benefits, increasing financial assistance to families struggling due to COVID. And it also was to help the national economic crisis. Hold on a second. So we needed this money, but we also need to provide assistance to cash-strapped local governments, reopening school districts, and the U.S. Postal Service. If Senator McConnell and President Trump are reelected this fall, how will this result impact the passage of this important bill? Are schools needed? Are local communities needed? Working families needed? And it just seems so overwhelming and disappointing that it has been stalled for so long. So can you answer that question, please?
Sure, Sister Julie, thank you for raising that. And thank you to the Cincinnati AFL-CIO and Brother Peter and the other board members for pulling this together and for fighting so hard. Elections have consequences, and Senator Brown would clearly say that we need to make sure we turn the Senate into Democratic hands, and we need to have a president that can listen and can respond to working people instead of attacking working people. And Senator Brown has held all kinds of roundtables around Ohio, has listened to a lot of teachers, a lot of union leaders, a lot of people who are hurting so badly. And if we don't provide help to local governments and do it in a meaningful way, then it'll be the Republicans that defund the police. It'll be the Republicans that hurt our public education, something they've done in other ways. And this election means a big difference for our kids and for our communities throughout the state in a way that I don't believe any other have. So we need to pass this. The other thing I'll mention is, as you mentioned, Julie, the House passed this quick. And a couple years ago, they wouldn't have. But because of the election, they had people that cared about working people. And in that bill, in the HEROES bill, was also provision to make sure that multi-employer pensions are taken care of, that the schools were taken care of, that food assistance were taken care of. And then it just sat because of your senator across the river. And it sat there for this whole time. And then they passed what they called the skinny bill. And I'll tell you, the skinny bill was really skinny. And it didn't take care of the needs of Ohioans and other people around the country. So the work you're doing in the next short period of time before Election Day will make all the difference in what we can get passed ongoing. Thank you for that question, Julie.
Yes, thank you,
Thank
John.
you.
Thank you, Julie. Would Amy or Kate like to jump in on that question as well? Any thoughts?
Go ahead, Kate.
No, you go first.
All right. So since you mentioned the senator across the river, that's who I'm running against. And you're absolutely right. He is the one-man holdup of everything. And first of all, I just want to say it's great to be with you. I just ran in here from Estill County, which is in central Kentucky. So I'm sorry I was a little bit late here, but I'll tell you what, Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area, guess what? Just like Kate, that's where I'm from. I'm from Northern Kentucky, and so it's great to be with you. And I know so many of you probably are living in Northern Kentucky and cross the bridge every day and do what you do and work very hard. I'm somebody that believes that we're way out of balance right now, and we do, as John was saying, we do need to protect workers. There is one man who has done who has been the worst with regards to workers' rights, with regards to undermining the voice of workers in this country. And that is unfortunately my senator here in Kentucky. And that's why it's so important to take him on. But to answer your question on the HEROES Act, I mean, look, Mitch McConnell would not allow that act to even get to the floor of the Senate for a vote. Wouldn't allow it. Because he knew that it would pass. I think he knew that there are enough Republicans out there that if they had the opportunity to vote on this bill that would help America, they would do it. And of course, they're just following their leader who has not the courage to be able to put it forth. And of course, meanwhile, what he did all summer was go on vacation instead of negotiating a bill that could help people. And John said it best, the teeny tiny bill that he put up just doesn't have, first of all, the first 75 pages of it are corporate liability protections, unlimited for 5 years. I mean, it's just the opposite of where we need to be going right now in the middle of coronavirus. We need to be taking care of people. We need to be making sure that we have protective equipment. We need to be making sure that if you're working to put food on the table right now, that you are protected. And so he is going in the opposite direction. And of course we need aid for state and local governments, as John was saying, because that's just teachers, that's firefighters, it's police officers, that's jobs. So if Trump and our president gets reelected with Senator McConnell, I just don't believe that they're going to push through the needed aid for our country right now. So Kate.
Okay.
Or who else? Sorry.
Well, thank you. We're actually going to move to Mark Cato's next question due to time. He's from AFSCME, Ohio Council 8. Mark, go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, my question is for Kate Schroeder. I just wanted to ask, if elected, what are the top 3 issues you would work to enact?
Thank you, Mark. It's great to be here. And thanks Denise and Pete and Phil and Brian. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here in this new way and finding, you know, even in these unusual circumstances that we can come together. And there's a lot of things. I get a lot of questions like, what are the 1 or 2 things you want to do? And there is so much that we need to do. The first thing I will say is just building on what some of the comments we just had from John and Amy. If we do not have relief by the time that the new Congress comes in, my God, that has to be our first priority. To me, it is not about, we have a lot of people saying, oh, it's public health or it's the economy. These two are interrelated. I am a public health person. That's what my career has been in. The stronger our public health response, the sooner and more safely we can fully reopen the economy. And we've got to do these hand in hand. It's got to be making sure that all our workers have the equipment that they need with the PPE. Every one of our frontline workers. And it means support to our state and local governments, to our schools, to our postal services. It means full testing capacity, extension of unemployment insurance, and a really big, bold investment in our economy, in infrastructure. This is the way, you know, the Build Back Better plan that Biden is talking about. We have to come out of this recession strong, and it's going to require investment. And so that is going to be one of my highest priorities. People are suffering right now. Any of us that are out there talking to people, you all know it. You know, I'm a parent of young kids. People are just trying to get through the day. We have epic levels of mental health crises going on right now. And so we've got to get the support people need. Healthcare, number 2 thing I will talk about, you know, we have got to move towards universal coverage. Access to healthcare is a universal right. We need to expand access, improve quality, and reduce costs. I've spent my career negotiating drug prices internationally, and there is no reason that we are the only country in the world that doesn't negotiate on our prescription drugs. And that is something that I think we've got to be able to bring people together to do. There is, you know, the results of our current, how broken our healthcare system is laid bare during this pandemic. And that's something I want to go there and work my tail off to address.
Wonderful. Thank you. Great. Our next question is from Bill how do I say it? Londrigan. I didn't want to mess it up, and I did. Hey, Bill.
That's
You
quite
are
all
with
right.
the Kentucky AFL-CIO, and go ahead and ask your question.
You're very welcome. I'm Bill Londrigan. I'm president of the Kentucky AFL-CIO, and congratulations on the Cincinnati AFL-CIO Central Council for this 50th anniversary COPE event, which obviously is a lot different from what we're used to doing, and great to see everybody, and glad to be here. Let me also give a shout out to my brothers and sisters from Northern Kentucky, the Northern Kentucky CLC, Tim Donahue, and all of our friends up there that are working hard to help elect our friends of labor like Amy McGrath. And my question, I guess, for Amy McGrath was supposed to be about the 3 things she'll do once she gets elected and replaces multimillionaire Moscow Mitch McConnell. But Amy's already talked a little bit about some of those things. But Amy, why don't you talk a little bit about what you're doing in your campaign and how you see things laying out that we can get rid of Mitch McConnell, the second most dangerous and un-American candidate that we have, an elected official in the United States right now. And thank you, Amy, for everything you're doing and your support for organized labor. As I pointed out in my little chat, Amy's staff is now all members of IBW Local 369 in Louisville, Kentucky. So thank you, Amy. It's good to see you.
It's good to be with you all. Look, I mean, what's amazing about this year is that in this election, Kentucky's never made it easier to vote than 2020. And I think that's a game changer for this race, because you're going to have a lot of people who have been disenfranchised because I don't know how it works in Ohio, but in Kentucky, we typically only have a 12-hour window on that Tuesday in November to vote. We don't have normally absentee mail-in ballotings. We don't have early voting in Kentucky. And that has all changed this year. And we're voting right now, and that goes all the way until October 9th. And then on October 13th, we start early voting all the way until Election Day, Monday through Saturday. That's incredible. This campaign, I'm going all around the state showing people, hey, enough is enough. 36 years, you know, this guy's been in office 36 years. How y'all doing? And I mean, that's basically my message, and that we can do better. So much of that is geared towards working families and working Kentuckians that have just, you know, here in Kentucky, we haven't seen a wage increase in 2 decades. And we have a senator who just, you know, doesn't want to invest in us. I talk a lot about infrastructure. I know Kate said that was one of her top 3 things. That's definitely one of the top 3 things I talk about. And I talk about it in terms of jobs. You know, just the Brent Spence Bridge. You guys know about this. That bridge was a problem when I was a kid. My parents went across that bridge every single day to and from work. And that could be 25,000 jobs right there. Fixing it, making it better, putting the infrastructure that we need. And in my mind, that has to come from the federal side. Why? Because anybody that watches that bridge, you know that's federal, that's national traffic. That's not just us commuting back and forth. So, you know, we need some help in that area. And what I want to do is go and make sure that those jobs are good Davis-Bacon jobs. That's what we need for our country right now. We need to protect pensions, you know, and pensions a promise. We need to, you know, protect, you know, Bush Lewis. All of these things are so important. And I'm stressing that everywhere I go. And I'm just in Owensboro a couple of days ago, talking to some union, mostly gentlemen, but folks there. And you know what they told me is, we just want a voice at the table. We want a voice at the table. We don't have one anymore. And so that's really what I want to make sure we do in Washington. Kate and I and everybody else that you know are running to really represent workers.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. We have one last question. This is from Joe Rugula, and Joe is not on, but Pete is going to ask this question, I believe. Joe is from AFSCME, Ohio Association of Public School Employees. So Pete, why don't you go ahead and ask the question?
Thank you. Thank you, Denise. So to the panel, the question is, how will a Biden-Harris-led White House and a pro-working family Senate majority ultimately help to grow and build the American labor movement?
Who would like to take that?
Well, first, and I'll kick it over, I'll be very brief. You know, we need a pro-labor National Labor Relations Board. I think you're going to see that if we can get through this election and flip the Senate and get Joe Biden elected. You know, we're gonna do things like pass the pro law that make sure that helps workers unionize. So, and then when we do things on infrastructure, and I know that we need to, certainly in Kentucky we need to, and I'm not just talking about roads, bridges, dams, I'm talking about broadband, 21st century infrastructure. We got to do the 20th and the 21st century. And that's when we make sure that those jobs are good Davis-Bacon jobs. So those are all things that I think we can do. I'll hand it over to Kate.
Yeah, just to echo that, I agree with all of that. I mean, I think we are seeing in this economy, you know, our middle class has shrunk to levels that we haven't seen since the Great Depression. And that is our strength of our country, is our middle class. And we have got to invest in this. We have got to pass the Employee Free Choice Act so that anybody can unionize. Like, that is so key. We need the project labor agreements. We need to put the living wage in place and raise it to the minimum wage to $15. Like, we will have such a historic opportunity if we have the White House, the Senate, and the House. Like, we have got to be ready to work on day one, because there's been such an erosion of these rights to organize and support for working families. Like, this will be our chance to rebuild the middle class, and we have got to be ready and take it on day one.
Wonderful. And John?
The senator would agree with both Amy and Kate. And I'll tell you, think of what a difference the Senate would be if you had Amy replacing Mitch in the US Senate. It would be such an incredible, tremendous choice, and it can happen. And in addition to the people that live on the other side of the river, the other thing is all of us can help to make a contribution personally to their campaign and to knock on, or excuse me, and make some phone calls and do that work, make a big difference. The other thing I'll just mention is this PROACT is so important. As someone who was a union leader for 25 years and works for the most pro-labor senator in the country, I'll tell you, I can't tell you what fear and intimidation does, despite the fact that the support for labor is at an all-time high. And a PROACT would just let people to be able to organize if they want, free of that fear and intimidation. So that would just make a big difference. And Senator Brown really believes this is a moment where Biden winning the White House would really make a big difference for the labor movement, not just short-term things, but long-term issues that we can build back the middle class. Wonderful.
Thank you, John. And please give Sherrod our best. We love him, and we're so happy you were here with us tonight. So with that, we have just a few more minutes left. How many more? Okay, 2? Okay. So could we just go around, do a round robin around all 3 of you? Give us one thing that you want us to walk away with.
Okay, I'll start. Northern Kentucky is the Pennsylvania of this race for U.S. Senate. And everybody that is in Northern Kentucky, please stand up. Be a part of this campaign. You will make a difference. We need to win Northern Kentucky. I'm never going to forget it. It's where I'm from. I can guarantee you that. But it's going to take everybody. He's got a ton of money. He's going to throw the kitchen sink with all kinds of dark money and all kinds of lies. But I tell you what's going to win this thing? It's not tweets. It's not commercials. It's you talking to people, giving them going through your contacts, telling them they can vote right now, having those hard conversations. Because I tell you what, we can change the trajectory of our country if we can get rid of Mitch. Thanks.
Great. Next.
Yeah, thanks. Just to build on what Amy said, like this is a moment in time. We have an opportunity now. It is not about Amy. It is not about me. It is about the movement that we are all part of, and taking back our country and saying that our country, our community deserves better. The district I'm running in here was drawn to be 5 points Republican. We are up in the polls. We can do this together, and really honored to be part of this, and more excited more than anything to be a champion working together to get results once we get elected.
Fabulous.
If
And John?
Senator Brown didn't have a different commitment tonight, he would be saying, find the 5 people who you don't think would otherwise vote and talk to them, help them with their vote plan, get them to vote. And I'll tell you this, in addition to making sure that we have a different president, Senator Brown will be incredibly thrilled if Amy joins him as a colleague, because he doesn't dislike many people, but he really dislikes her opponent. And whatever we can do, if we can think of those 5 people and continue to talk to them until Election Day, beyond the labor program that Pete and others have put together, that's probably the most important thing. So thank you for being here.
Fantastic. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, John. Wonderful, wonderful panel discussions, all of you. I know you're all busy and you came, and we're so glad. Thanks to all of our panelists. All right, now it's time to get this party really started.
Good evening, sisters, brothers, and dear friends of labor. Welcome to the 50th annual celebration for the Cincinnati AFL-CIO Labor Council Committee on Political Education, known mainly as COPE. Tonight, we celebrate 50 years of unity and solidarity. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Work is our core value, but we do it for a reason, for the passion, to take care of our cities, our people, our country, our future. We work together because we're stronger together. The sense of accomplishment, the friendships, the good we do. We have a shared purpose. It's prosperity, community, togetherness. We want America to succeed. We want our neighbors to thrive. We assemble together. We speak with one voice. We rise united. when we have to, we fight together. This fight isn't going to win itself. We're the ones. America's labor movement is much bigger than we are. It's everyone who provides for a child, who works long and hard, who builds bridges, who cuts cloth, who drives trucks. We create American value. We unite our nation. We join together. We fight together, and we win together. United. Today, tomorrow, and forever. We are the AFL-CIO.
Sisters, brothers, and friends of labor, please give a warm labor welcome to the president of the 12.5 million member AFL-CIO, Richard L. Trumka.
Good evening, everyone. Brother Peter McClendon, Brother William Froley, thank you for your leadership and your steadfast commitment to electing pro-worker candidates up and down the ballot. Look, we face no shortage of challenges in the months and the years ahead. Our opponents are more shameless and callous than ever before, and we have more at stake than ever. We hear all the time that this is the most important election of our lifetime. Well, this election may very well decide the destiny of this state and our country for a lifetime. See, we won't be silenced. We won't be pushed around. We won't be walked over, talked over, or told to sit down and shut up. This is the time to be more and to expect more. That's why we have to defeat Donald Trump and send Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to the White House. See, Joe supports the PRO Act, which will create a much fairer process for forming a union. Working families in Ohio won't have to fear another debate over right to work. This CLC in this state beat back an attempt in 2011 and held the line on right to work ever since. And we're not going back. See, Joe wants to ensure the future of America is made in America by America's union members. Joe has a plan to beat this virus and build back better in Cincinnati by making our safety his priority, with investments in infrastructure that'll create new jobs, union jobs. Workers in Cincinnati can outcompete anyone, but our leaders at all levels of government need to fight for us. So this election is not just about the White House. Our democracy is under siege, especially by robed judges on our courts. Well, Cincinnati, you can do something about that. You can elect Judge Jennifer Bruner, Judge John O'Donnell to the Ohio Supreme Court, and you can flip that court. You can elect pro-worker candidates to the State House. And that's why tonight is so important. At every level of government in Cincinnati and throughout Ohio and across America, the labor movement is stepping up when people in positions of power refuse to. You see, unions teach and make. We package, we print, and we bake. We build the roads, we fight the fires, we lift the loads, we stand tall, we don't run, and we don't hide. Let's get ready to fight, let's get ready to vote, and let's get ready to move heaven and earth to elect pro-worker candidates, and most of all, let's get ready to win. God bless you, and thank you.
Good evening again, and welcome back to the Cincinnati AFL-CIO Labor Council 50th COPE celebration. At this time, it is my pleasure to welcome to the stage, well, to the screen anyway, Bill Fraley and President of the Cincinnati AFL-CIO Labor Council, Peter McClendon, Executive Secretary Treasurer of the Cincinnati AFL-CIO Labor Council. The three of us will be sharing duty tonight for the remainder of the evening and as we move through the rest of the program. Hi, guys. So as they say, without further ado, yes, please wave to Pete McClendon and Bill Fraley. Good evening, you guys. You look so dapper.
Thank you. So do you.
Yeah, we're all dressing up a little bit here. So now it's time to officially get this party started. So please stand wherever you are right now and welcome the national champion Springboro High School Air Force Junior ROTC Panther Drill Team to present the colors, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. And then please remain standing as the amazingly talented Ms. Sean S.D. Hubble sings our national anthem, followed by Lift Every Voice and Sing.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sisters, brothers, and friends, please welcome a phenomenal gospel music vocalist, accomplished pianist and keyboard player, prolific writer of more than 100 songs, a dynamic music arranger and producer, and gospel artist extraordinaire, Ms. Sean Hubble, known to many of us as Esty.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light
That was beautiful. Thank you, Esty. And now, please welcome our special guest and dear friend, the founder and senior pastor at Truth and Destiny Covenant Ministries Fellowship United Church of Christ, Leslie E. Jones, for our invocation this evening.
Good evening. I'm honored by this opportunity to come and invoke the Spirit of God. Let us pray. God of all creation, in whose eyes we are all beloved, we gather this evening with praise in our hearts for 50 years of longevity, building solidarity and unity among laborers, union leaders, elected officials, and others. We welcome you in this space. Help us to hear the voices crying out for justice and fairness for all people. Let us be inspired and empowered through what we see and hear to continue to work for change, to fight poverty, not the poor, to end racism and sexism, to boldly protect the rights of workers while building an America that all of your children, Black, white, Asian, Latin, gay, and straight, laborer or management, can be safe and proud to call this country home. Thank you for helping us accomplish our work and goals in the past. Help us now to look forward with hope despite the presence of giants. As you strengthen David, strengthen us. For with your help, all things are possible. We pray these things in faith and in your mighty name. Ashe and amen.
And now, will you please join me for a moment of silence for Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Thank you. Wow, 50 years, quite an accomplishment. Throughout the evening, you will be seeing messages of celebration from our communities. Here are just a few.
Good evening. I'm Allison Hathaway, judicial candidate for Hamilton County Common Pleas Court. And I just wanted to take a moment to congratulate the Cincinnati Labor Council on 50 years of solidarity, hard work, and leadership.
Hey, Cincinnati friends. Thank you for everything you do every single day. And cheers to 50 years for the Cincinnati Labor Council. I am so proud to stand in solidarity with you.
Greetings. On behalf of AFSCME Ohio Council 8, we would like to congratulate the Cincinnati AFL-CIO for 50 years of your leadership in fighting for working men and women. We thank you for all you've done for us in the past and what you're going to do for us in the future. Again, congratulations, Cincinnati AFL-CIO. We love you.
So, 50 years ago, the time was 1970. U.S. President Richard Nixon orders an invasion of Cambodia, widening the war in Vietnam. In protest, millions march across the U.S. University campuses are shut down by student strikes. 4 protesters at Kent State University in Ohio are killed by National Guard troops. The U.S. Senate repeals the Gulf of Tonkin resolution that had given Presidents Johnson and Nixon sweeping powers in the Vietnam War. The Beatles break up. An Egyptian president, Gamal Abdel Nasser, dies. Anwar Sadat becomes president. And that was just a few of the milestone events in the year that marked the very first AFL-CIO Cincinnati Cope Dinner event. A great amount of water has gone under the bridge since then, and there is no better person suited to speak about the intervening years than Dan Radford, the longest running executive secretary treasurer in the history of the Cincinnati Labor Council. And Pete, Bill, and I were grateful to have some time with him just a few short days ago. Let's watch.
Hey, Dan, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Denise, and you?
I'm doing great. We've got both Bill and Pete here, and we are so excited that you are sharing this evening with us.
Dan, it's an honor and a privilege to follow in your footsteps and the footsteps of Bill Sheehan, Doug Sizemore. You know, Bill and I were talking, you know, as officers, what an honor and privilege it is for us to serve. But what were your favorite moments with the labor movement in Cincinnati over the last 23 years that you worked?
You know, I was very fortunate because Cincinnati, although it's not the largest federation, it was one of the most active. And you know, federation goes back Cincinnati to 1886. 1886. It would call it a different organization then, but it has a very long history. You know, working with the membership and with the officers, and especially the rank and file was the top of my list.
Well, Dan, under your leadership, you know, you started the Labor Day picnic in Coney Island, which is now one of the largest, you know, union events on Labor Day. You got Cincinnati designated as a union city by the National AFL-CIO. I mean, you left such a legacy that that I feel like I'm walking on the shoulders of giants. But you've built such a great history here, Dan, and we just try to carry on your legacy with everything we do with all of our affiliates. And we just thank you for your service and everything you've done for Cincinnati.
No, I appreciate that, Pete. And the Labor Day picnic was, even though it was a lot of discussions on whether or not to go forward, it was one of the best decisions the board and myself and Bob Richardson ever made.
So let me ask you this, Dan. When did you first attend a COPE event, and who was your favorite COPE speaker you ever saw?
Well, obviously, I'm going to say Joe Biden right now, but you know, we were very close, and I was very close personally with Senator Howard Metzenbaum, John Glenn, and you know, Metzenbaum at time would call me up 1 o'clock in the morning, raising heck because of something that happened in Cincinnati, and he was just a great person, and when it was discussed to start the COPE dinner, which, you know, this is the 50th year, you know, it was actually for two things. Number one, to raise some money for the political program, because we were more or less, we had a 2-cent per capita earmark, but we were restricted on what to use it for. But it was also to kind of award where local unions could bring the people who makes the labor movement work, you know, the rank and file, you know, the local union president. And what's really ignored is the spouses of these leaders, because they are the ones that are home by themselves. And this gives them a chance actually to go out and have a nice dinner and meet influential people, whether or not it's our next president, Joe Biden, or Senator Metzenbaum, or Jerry Springer, and it was always a fun event. It was really not only raising money, but enabled us to get them more involved.
What political lessons do you think we should be telling young labor leaders who are going forward with the next 50 years of the labor movement in Southwest Ohio?
Well, of course, the future is always the young leadership coming up. And the labor movement has changed, not only in Cincinnati, but around the country. And one thing I regret, and I have to take possible responsibility for it, is you know, it needs to be a forum, a local forum on education. And what a lot of people don't know is that you looking past over the years, the first major issue that would discuss with the old Working People's Party, you know, in the 1902 or something, that they met for 5 days and they come up with one issue to support, and that was public education, because they knew even then that education was the key to bring working families up out of poverty to the middle class.
Pete had mentioned some pretty big hitters in the labor movement here around Cincinnati, and starting with you, Dan, obviously, but Bill Sheehan, who was a good friend, Doug Sizemore, and now Pete, filling in your shoes. Over the last 60 years or so, we've had 4 pretty dynamic leaders in that role from 4 pretty diverse backgrounds. When you look at you 4, I mean, you obviously with your law degree and Pete with his law degree, but from different backgrounds as far as your legalese, I guess, and Pete coming from AFSCME. But I think that says a lot about the Cincinnati Labor Council in this area in general. When you can have the 4 leaders that we have had, and the ability that you 4 have had to unite workers from every background. You in particular, Dan, 31 years ago when I got into this, when Bob Sullivan was our business manager, through Willie Kester and then Marty Nassif, up until now, you're one of the reasons why people like myself and other members of Local 392 and the building trades get involved in the AFL-CIO so heavily, because of the coalitions that you were able to build and the relationships that you allowed us to foster across the building trades through the public sector employees, the school teachers, the firefighters, you name it. Those relationships are extremely important for labor, and for as labor goes, so goes obviously.
That's right.
So the 4 of you have done an incredible job. Because we all do come from diverse labor backgrounds, but at the end of the day, our core issues are the same core issues across labor. And I think you 4 do a very nice job, or you did a very nice job in carrying on with your successors of making sure that the labor unions don't become so laser focused on just their issues that they forget that the purpose of this is to bring everybody up, regardless of how they toil for a living. And I really think, I just want to make it a point that the 4 of you that have led the AFL-CIO, I feel like over the last 31 years that I've been involved, you guys have done a great job. So.
Well, Bill, you know, in the Labor Council and labor in general, it's an old adage, say that's what's good for the community is good for labor, and vice versa. And fortunately, it's our job to bring the folks kicking and hollering sometime, to make sure that we get the recognition that we should, that the workers does. And I can recall my first union job was, I was age 14 years old. I was a busboy at Oconee. And then when I was in college, I was a cook at the Ford Motor Company. In fact, I still hold the record there because I'm the only person in the history of Ford Motor Company, the only cook that poisoned a complete third shift.
What?
But the union got my job back in 2 days.
Oh, no.
Didn't do it on purpose.
I'm sure you didn't do it on purpose, but wow. It's quite an admission, Dan.
I will say, Dan, you know, based upon your leadership, the AFL-CIO endorsement is one of the most coveted endorsements in Greater Cincinnati. A lot of people pay us a lot of respect based on their candidacy and saying, okay, but did the AFL endorse you? And like I said, that just goes back the legacy that you left for us to carry on. So, but that's an important thing, and that's what kind of elevates us amongst other CLCs, not only in the state but in the Midwestern country.
Well, it's you know, the endorsement's critical in endorsing the right person and not being timid when they go astray to call them on it. And what a lot of people don't understand, and we need Pete to continue to remind them, it's not just the union member, it's their spouse, it's their children. And within Pete's database, we track those voters. They may not be union members, but they may be students, they may be whatever, but we know where to go get them.
Any parting thoughts, Dan, for us? Any advice?
I miss the labor movement every morning. I miss it every day. But the only way I could get back in it is travel, and I'm just not up to traveling anymore. Anytime you need my help, you call.
Oh,
Dan, I would interject that I think that you are involved with the labor movement every day. I think you're involved with the labor movement every day in some way, shape, or form, just through your legacy and through what you taught those of us who are coming up behind you. And hopefully we are utilizing our platform to pass it on to the younger generation that is coming up behind us. So you're involved, whether you feel it or not, I don't know, but your legacy will always be that way in Cincinnati.
And that is key, passing it on and never be afraid of change. Never be afraid of change.
oh, thank you, Dan. Great words. Thank you so much. Wow. Well, I'm going to let you go, but we've had so much fun talking to you and catching up. Thanks again for your time.
Okay.
Very inspiring.
Thank you very much. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you, Dan.
Great seeing you, Dan. Stay safe.
Greetings, brothers and sisters. This is Judge Alan Triggs from the Hamilton County Municipal Court, congratulating the Cincinnati Labor Council on 50 years of unity and solidarity. I wish we were together tonight to celebrate in person. Thank you for supporting me for the past 5 years.
Good evening, union friends. Charmaine McGuffey here, running for Sheriff of Hamilton County. I want to congratulate the Cincinnati Labor Council on 50 years of strong union leadership. Go unions.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Cincinnati Labor Council, for 50 years of leadership.
Great. How exciting. The Labor Council has seen so much in so many years now. And Dan, thank you so much for sharing a few of your memories with us. Now, Bill, I'm so excited. You get to welcome our special guest this evening. First up is Lonnie Stevenson, president of IBEW. Tell us a little bit more about him, Bill.
Thank you, Denise. Lonnie R. Stevenson is president of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, representing 775,000 active and retired members across North America. In his over 40 years in the IBEW, Stevenson is a leading voice for dignity and respect for all electrical workers, strong and durable labor management partnerships, and on-the-job excellence throughout all of the IBEW's industries. A native of Rock Island, Illinois, Stevenson started as an apprentice wireman in 1975, joining Rock Island Local 145 a year later. Active in his local, he served as a steward, vice president, president, and trustee of his local's pension and joint apprenticeship training committees before being appointed business agent in 1991. 5 years later, he was elected business manager. As business manager of Local 145, he made organizing his top priority, growing his local from 700 to more than 1,100 members during his tenure. He built strong labor management partnerships throughout the Quad Cities area, leading the Quad Cities River Renaissance Task Force, which brought new jobs and investment to his community and region. His commitment to growth was noticed by then International President Edwin D. Hill, who appointed him an international representative in the 6th District in 2002, where he served as district organizing coordinator. In 2005, he was assigned to serve in the district office as his assistant, and in 2010, he was appointed 6th District International Vice President and was subsequently elected to a full term at the 38th International Convention in 2011, the post he held until becoming International President in 2015. He was overwhelmingly elected to a full term by delegates to the 39th International Convention in 2016. Stevenson has made organizing his top priority, and under his watch, the IBEW has grown bigger and stronger each year. He serves on the executive committee of the AFL-CIO, the governing board of presidents for North America's building trades unions, the board of directors of the Nuclear Energy Institute, the Center for Energy Workforce Development, and as labor vice chair of the Council on Competitiveness. Sisters, brothers, and friends, the president of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Lonnie R. Stevenson.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, IBEW, powering North America.
Sisters, brothers, and friends of labor, please welcome the president of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Lonnie R. Stevenson.
Greetings, brothers and sisters. Executive Treasurer Peter Lindell, President William Fraley, and the entire leadership of the Cincinnati AFL-CIO Labor Council. Thank you for the invitation to speak with you this evening. And congratulations on 50 years representing workers in the greater Cincinnati region. That's a great accomplishment, and thank you for all your dedication and work. You know, I'm going to speak to you tonight about what's happening in the political arena and leading up to November. You know, there are pundits out there who've written off Ohio. They say it's too much in the bag for Trump. Brothers and sisters, I don't buy that for one moment, and neither do any of you. Some of the latest polls that I have seen have Biden slightly ahead of Trump in Ohio. One poll has him up by 5 points. And right there in Cincinnati's 1st Congressional District, I have seen polls where Kate Schroeder is leading by up to 5 points as well over Chabot. Kate is known for a healthcare advocate, and she's a cancer survivor. She has a full understanding about the need for healthcare and protecting pre-existing conditions. We need more folks like Kate in the halls of Congress. We all know all too well, however, that the polls don't vote. People do. Ohio remains the bellwether state. If we can win Ohio, we'll win America. That's why it's important that everything that we can do, that we work to turn out the vote, the union vote in Ohio. The Ohio labor movement has proven it again and again. When union members get educated, when they get registered, and when they vote, then labor wins, just like you did when you defeated right to work. And we need to win this November, brothers and sisters. I know we say this every election cycle, but I can't think of a time in my life when it's been more true. This really is the most important election cycle of our lifetime. It's truly about the soul of our nation. There is nothing more critical to our future, both as a movement and as Americans, than getting Donald Trump out of the White House. And it's you, the proud members of the Greater Cincinnati Labor Movement, who can help make that happen. You know, more than 200,000 have died now from COVID. More than 22 million jobs have been lost. That's a record of failure that few presidents can match. COVID-19 isn't Donald Trump's fault, but his bungled response to it is. It shouldn't have been this bad, brothers and sisters. His refusal to heed the warning of experts, his refusal to speak openly and honestly with the American people about what we're up against, his refusal to take action to protect frontline workers. That's Donald Trump's legacy right there. Here's what really gets me. He knew how bad it was. As journalist Bob Woodward recently revealed, Trump knew just how bad and how deadly COVID-19 was from the moment it hit our shores. But he refused to level with the public about what he knew. His excuse is that he didn't want to panic the American people. Well, I don't buy that. This is a guy who tweets all day about how anarchists are coming to burn down our homes. I don't think he cared about panicking the American people. He cared about panicking Wall Street. Early on, he called the pandemic a Democratic hoax while holding a rally knowing full well how dangerous the virus was. Just a couple days ago, he announced that he will sign an executive order for healthcare and protecting pre-existing conditions. Now that's what I call a hoax. That is the one thing about Donald Trump. Despite all of his talk about blue-collar workers, all his promises to bring back steel and manufacturing jobs, all his talk about working people, Trump always takes the side of Wall Street, never Main Street. He always stands with the big corporate CEOs, not working Americans. He always takes the side of union busters, not union organizers. Just look at his record. The only big bill he managed to pass was one of the biggest tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans in a generation. A bill that drove up our deficit while rewarding the top 1%. Just look at his record when it comes to workers' rights. He's stacked the courts with union busters. He's stacked regulatory agencies with anti-worker lobbyists. We're in the midst of the greatest health pandemic in decades, and where's OSHA? Trump's sidelining it. Instead of putting frontline workers' lives are now at risk. Tomorrow, Trump will announce his Supreme Court pick. Where do you think that nominee will stand on something like the Janus decision? I can't predict who he'll pick, but I'm 100% certain that there'll be no friend of ours. Trump likes to boast about his special relationship with the building trades. Well, as a head of one of the largest building trades unions in the nation, let me say this, that's a load of crap. We spent much of the last year fighting an effort by Trump's labor secretary to attack our union apprenticeship programs and boost our low-road non-union competition. Only after a major mobilization by the IBEW and all the other building trades construction unions did Trump finally back off. If that's not enough reasons to vote out Donald Trump, here's another one. The basic foundation of trade unionism is the idea of solidarity. The idea that despite our color, our gender, our national origin, our sexuality, we're united with our fellow brothers and sisters in fighting for a better life. During our nation's greatest moments, when Americans from all walks of life came together to knock down barriers and take on systemic racism, we saw that same kind of solidarity on display. Donald Trump hates solidarity. Trump has based his entire political career on dividing Americans against each other, not bringing us together. He fuels hate, not love, on pushing fear, not hope. After the killing of George Floyd, I, in the name of the IBEW, spoke out. I made it clear that the IBEW Black Lives Matter. For some, this was controversial, but for many others, it was long overdue. My stepson is a police officer. The vast majority of our policemen and women are dedicated and brave public servants. This isn't about being anti-cop. It's about being pro-justice. And we need a leader in the White House who will work to bring Americans together to confront the challenges of systemic racism, who will work to bring Americans together to take on the challenge of income inequality, who will bring Americans together to fight COVID-19 and to build this nation back better. And that leader is Joe Biden. The IBEW endorsed Vice President Biden early on in the primary season. And that's something we usually don't do. But here's why we did it. Because Joe doesn't just pay lip service to labor, he listens to us. When it came time to draft his energy and climate bill, he didn't just ask our opinion, he gave the IBEW a seat at the table. That's why Biden's plan is not only aggressive about tackling climate change, It's aggressively pro-union, pro-manufacturing, and pro-made in the USA. It's not just an energy plan, it's a jobs plan as well. That's the message we need to spread here in Ohio. Trump talks a lot about bringing in good jobs back to the USA, but what has he done? Zero, except to give us plenty of lip service, just like the other insider politicians as well. We can win Ohio, but I need every one of you to do your part. Make sure that your members, your friends, your family are registered to vote. Make sure that they've got a plan to vote, whether by mail or in person. I know that not everyone we talk to is with us. Many folks, including some union members, still think Trump is doing a great job. We're not going to convince everyone, but every person we do convince makes a huge difference. So I don't care what the polls say. This will be close on election day, and every vote will matter. Despite everything the right wing has thrown at you, Ohio remains union strong. That's because of the hard work that you do each and every day in both the workplace and in your communities. This election isn't about Democrats or Republicans. It's about who's on our side. You know this better than anyone. I know COVID-19 has turned everything upside down when it comes to campaigning. I'd much rather be with you all there in person. But even if we're not able to go door to door this year, we've still got our work cut out for us before November 3rd. It is our chance to make history. Let's take back Ohio. Let's take back the United States of America by electing Joe Biden as president and Kamala Harris as vice president, and send Kate Schroeder to Congress. We can and we must do this for the men and women who make our great nation move, the working class. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you very much, President Stevenson. We appreciate you being part of our celebration. Coming up, we have Lee Saunders, President of AFSCME. But before we go to President Saunders, we have the added pleasure of Sean Grayson, President of Ohio AFSCME Council 8. And with us tonight to introduce President Lee Saunders is Brother Pete. Please give us a little of your insight into President Grayson, Pete.
Sisters and brothers, good evening. Again, my honor to introduce a great Ohio labor leader who hired me into my first full-time working job with the Ohio labor movement over 23 years ago. Sean Grayson, the president of AFSCME Ohio Council 8. Sean is nationally recognized as one of the best union attorneys in Ohio, with over 30 years in the Ohio labor movement. I was privileged to work under Sean as an attorney and later as Cincinnati Regional Director. And under Sean's direction and leadership, we successfully stopped the privatization of the Cincinnati Water Works. We saved the Cincinnati pension system from privatization. And most importantly, we stopped right to work in Ohio by defeating Senate Bill 5. Sean is a true trade unionist, dedicated to fighting for the rights of all working families and social economic justice for all workers in Ohio. So sisters and brothers, please welcome my mentor, and most importantly, my friend, AFSCME Council 8 President Sean Grayson.
Thank you, Pete. It is my pleasure this evening to introduce AFSCME International President Lee Saunders. Lee Saunders, the first African-American to serve as AFSCME's president, was first elected at the union's 40th International Convention in June 2012. Just last month, Lee was reelected by acclamation to his third term as the international president of AFSCME and its 1.4 million members at the union's 44th International Convention. Lee grew up in a union household in Cleveland, Ohio. This inspired him to join the Ohio Civil Service Employees Association when he began working for the Ohio Bureau of Employment Services in 1975. Lee's father was a bus driver and a member of the Amalgamated Transit Union, and his mother was a community organizer who, after raising two sons, returned to college and became a community college professor and a member of the American Association of University Professors. Saunders began his career with AFSCME in 1978 as a labor economist, but Lee formerly served in a number of capacities as AFSCME's elected secretary-treasurer, assistant director of research and collective bargaining services, director of community action, and deputy director of organizing and field services. Lee also served as the executive assistant to the president of AFSCME and was responsible for managing what is acknowledged to be one of the most effective political and legislative operations in the history of the American labor movement. Under President Saunders' leadership, AFSCME launched a program called AFSCME Strong that builds power through internal and external organizing and recognizes the individual contributions AFSCME's members make to serving and strengthening their communities. The program is credited with growth in AFSCME membership despite the Janus decision and the other challenges faced by the labor movement as a whole. Most recently, Lee Saunders has been a national leader on issues ranging from the need to protect, recognize, and reward essential workers who have kept our economy and communities going during the pandemic, the need to end systemic racism and social injustice, and the need to pass the HEROES Act to get additional relief to working families adversely impacted by the virus and to state and local governments struggling to retain public sector workers and provide vital public services. Lee Saunders serves as a vice president of the AFL-CIO Executive Council, which guides the daily work of the Labor Federation, and as chair of its political committee. He is an at-large member of the Democratic National Committee, president of Working America, and treasurer of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. Lee also serves as a board member of Priorities USA and the Democracy Alliance. Lee Saunders received a Master's of Arts degree from The Ohio State University in 1974, a year after earning his Bachelor's of Arts degree from The Ohio University. In 2002, the College of New Rochelle awarded Lee Saunders an honorary doctorate degree in humane letters. Lee and his wife Lynn live in Washington, D.C. and have two sons, Lee Jr. and Ryan, and two grandchildren. Sisters and brothers, it is my honor to introduce a fellow Buckeye and a leading voice in the American labor movement, AFSCME International President, Lee Saunders.
Hello, union family. Thank you, Sean, for that introduction. And congratulations on your recent election as an AFSCME International Vice President. It's a privilege to talk to my fellow Ohioans, even if we can't all gather in person. And I want to give a special shout out to all the AFSCME members joining us from Council 8, the Ohio Civil Service Employees Association, and the Ohio Association of Public School Employees. Throughout the last 6 months, as the nation has confronted the worst public health crisis in a century, working people have shown extraordinary strength and stamina. Union members have stood on the front lines, putting the health and safety of their neighbors first, even under the most difficult, dangerous conditions. If only enough politicians were demonstrating the same courage. Instead, what we're seeing from Mitch McConnell and his Senate caucus is breathtaking cruelty and callousness. With the COVID-19 death toll now over 200,000, with the economy falling off a cliff and millions losing their jobs, with states and localities facing massive revenue shortfalls, Mitch McConnell said he wanted to hit the pause button. Now, those are his exact words. They have sat on their hands while the HEROES Act has been sitting in McConnell's inbox for more than 4 months. And I guess they don't have the time now. They're too busy trying to jam through an illegitimate Supreme Court nomination with only weeks to go before a presidential election. Working families and communities are hurting. We need another COVID bill that extends unemployment benefits, that requires an OSHA standard, that ensures essential workers have PPE, that provides COBRA coverage to those who've lost their jobs and their health care. And that bill must include robust federal assistance to states, cities, towns, and schools, so we can maintain the public services that are the lifeblood of our communities: strong schools, clean water, road repair, well-staffed hospitals, garbage pickup, and more. Without this aid, Everything that makes our neighborhoods safe and strong is compromised. Without this aid, we'll see catastrophic job loss in both the public and the private sectors. The labor movement has been fighting since March to get Congress to fund the front lines. Time is running out to get it done. And this federal aid is the key to defeating the coronavirus and safely reopening our economy. So I'm asking you to send a clear message to your senators by texting FUND to 237-263. They need to hear from you ASAP. Now in Ohio, you already have one senator who does the right thing and sticks his neck out for working people. There is no better friend to labor than Sherrod Brown. The guy we need to work on is Rob Portman, who often talks the talk, but rarely walks the walk. Get in touch with him and tell him to fund the front lines. And for those of you who live in Kentucky, let Mitch McConnell know that if he doesn't take his finger off the pause button, we're going to hit the stop button on his political career on November 3rd. Again, text FUND to 237-263 now to be connected with your senators. In the meantime, we have to keep our eye on the ball when it comes to smart organizing strategies that give more workers a voice and allow our unions to grow. That voice has never been more important than it is right now. Unorganized workers are rising up, speaking out, and claiming their seat at the table. We have to be there to bring them in to our unions. Now, let me tell you what organizing means in the Buckeye State. Just a few months ago, AFSCME added 450 administrative, technical, and clerical staff at my alma mater of Ohio University. This OU campaign was a decades-long struggle, and it would not have been successful without support from local elected officials whose influence prevented the university from hiring union busters. With employer neutrality essentially secured, OU workers voted overwhelmingly to join AFSCME Council 8. I can't overstate the importance of having politicians in office who will use their bully pulpits and their legislative powers to strengthen the right to organize, protecting the freedom of working people to join a union without retaliation or reprisal. That's why political action is and must be one of the most important things we do. In this year's election, just 5.5 weeks away, is without question the most important of our lifetimes. I know you've heard that in years past, but it's no exaggeration this time. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the choice couldn't be clearer. We've got to make sure voters know exactly which politicians, including Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell, have been kicking working people to the curb. We're going to hold them accountable. Every elected official who failed to lead in this do or die moment, who was indifferent to public health, who was willing to hit that pause button while working families suffer, they're all going to hear from us loud and clear on November 3rd. I could cite chapter and verse about why Donald Trump doesn't deserve 4 more years, but you can't replace somebody with nobody. So I'd rather talk a little bit about the man who is going to take his job. Joe Biden is a proven fighter for working people who will provide the steady hand and strong leadership we need, especially during a national crisis. He and Kamala Harris will make sure the wealthy pay their fair share and everyone else gets a fair shake. They will repeal the Trump tax cuts, providing investments in education and healthcare, not bailouts and boondoggles for corporations. They will build on the Affordable Care Act instead of trying to tear it down, lowering costs, expanding access, and protecting people with pre-existing conditions. And they will appoint Supreme Court justices who will safeguard our constitutional freedoms, who will protect our healthcare at this moment when the ACA is threatened, who will advance the cause of racial justice, who will support union rights, voting rights, and women's rights, who will carry forward the legacy of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So let's get to work. Let's get to work, union family. As always, Ohio is going to be a decisive presidential battleground state, and the race is currently neck and neck. Plus, you have a chance to send Steve Chabot packing in the 1st Congressional District and make important gains on the state Supreme Court. Make sure your friends, family, and coworkers are registered to vote by the October 5th deadline. Make sure they request a mail-in ballot. Make sure they know that voting by mail is safe and secure. Political engagement in GOTV are going to look a little different this year. We can't hit the streets and knock on doors the way we normally would, but we will be creative, we will be resourceful. We will adopt new strategies and embrace new tools, but we will adapt to a virtual campaign environment and deploy our grassroots army just the same, with the same passion and urgency as ever. We don't have a choice. We can't afford to bring anything less than our very best. Too much is on the line. No pandemic is going to stop the labor movement from doing what it does best: educating, organizing, and mobilizing to elect pro-worker candidates up and down the ballot. Let's get the job done. Thanks very much.
Hey, Cincinnati Labor Council. Congrats on 50 years from your friend Jill Schiller, running for Hamilton County Treasurer.
Congratulations to the Cincinnati Labor Council on 50 years of leadership, of solidarity, of fighting the good fight. This work has never been more important. We are in this fight with you, and we look good for 50.
Good evening, State Representative Bridget Kelly, member of UFCW. Congratulations to the Cincinnati AFL-CIO on the 50th anniversary of the Cope Dinner. And thank you to the union members who have worked every day, including throughout a global pandemic, to do the essential work that powers our communities every single day. We appreciate you.
It's time to hold people accountable. It's literally a matter of life and death. When it started, yes, we were all misinformed. We're supposed to believe what the people who have access to more information tell us. But to see the magnitude of what this has evolved into and still deny that this is serious is dangerous.
In New Rochelle, the first large outbreak in the United States, people were totally unprepared. Meanwhile, my children's grandfather died. Friends are getting sick.
There's a lot of uncertainty. People are afraid that given the nature of this virus, we have no personal protective equipment whatsoever given to us.
To a lot of the community right now, we're the only person that they see. I've got 3 babes at home and a husband. So the fear that I could potentially bring something home to them, you know, it's real.
It's become a continuation of the disrespect towards working people that already existed before this crisis, but has become amplified. It feels insulting to the people who are at the so-called front lines and are deemed as essential personnel.
The situation of being essential has truly forced people to make a decision of, do I stay safe or do I support my family? I think it more or less comes down to the government and who we're governed by. But as of right now, all we can do is go out and vote.
I know we are close to election time. It's time to hold people accountable. The fact of the matter is, your life depends on it, period.
Sisters, brothers, and friends, our next guest this evening is currently serving as the Labor Political Director for the Democratic National Committee and is a key player on the political outreach team. In that role, he is tasked with expanding the DNC's partnerships with labor and mobilizing labor votes across the country. He's a man steeped in the ways of labor. Prior to joining the DNC, he served as the political director of the American Federation of Government Employees and the National Association of Letter Carriers. Please give a warm labor welcome to Tucker McDonald.
Good evening, brothers and sisters. Let me begin by first congratulating the Cincinnati Labor Council for 50 years of Coke dinners. It really breaks my heart that you can't be there in person because I can only imagine what a 50-50 would be like on your 50th anniversary. And all of us who spent plenty of time in union halls love a great 50-50. So you're just going to have to do it next year and make it that much bigger. Again, my name is Tucker McDonald, and I am proud to serve as the Director of Labor Engagement for the Democratic National Committee. As mentioned, prior to becoming working for the DNC, I served as the Political Director for the American Federation of Government Employees, and then prior to that, the Political Director for the National Association of Letter Carriers. So for all my brothers and sisters from NELC and AFG who are watching tonight, it's sure great to be with you, even if it is only virtually. So here we are, 39 days left. We have all heard time and time again during every election cycle, every labor-to-labor program, that it's the most important election of our lifetime. And I think without a doubt, this is definitely the most important election of the future of the labor movement, the future of democracy, the future of our planet, of our industries, and there just couldn't be more on the line than there is this election. On behalf of the DNC, I also want to give our congratulations from our chairman, Tom Perez. We had the wonderful opportunity as the DNC to be in Ohio for one of the Democratic presidential debates. It was a wonderful experience for us to spend some time in Ohio. It was the same time that unfortunately our brothers and sisters from the UAW were out on the picket line. Myself and the chairman had the opportunity to see some of you, and to stand with you. And it was such a proud moment when you were able to be successful in that strike and to give such inspiration to so many workers. And it really encompassed, I think, the importance of growing the labor movement and a reminder of all of the struggles that we have seen workers going through. And I think especially during this pandemic, we've all been reminded of how important it is to have a union. It has literally been the difference between life and death in some of these, institutions and hospitals and industries. And we see what our brothers and sisters have had to face in the healthcare industry. And the unions that are representing healthcare workers have kept those folks safe. They've made sure that they had PPE. They made sure that their members were able to, get the support that they need. And that is why we have to expand the labor movement. When we see these type of national emergencies and the impact it has on workers, it just, again, shows a light of why we need a strong, robust, and growing labor movement. And I think we all know the only way that that's going to happen and continue is if we see a President Biden and a Vice President Harris. I know all of you can look back on the last 4 years and see what this administration has done, to your union and to your members. And especially coming from the American Federation of Government Employees and seeing this administration attack the rights of federal workers, attack the rights to collectively bargain. We can only imagine what another 4 years would be like with this administration, knowing that they wouldn't have another re-election to worry about. And good Lord, we can imagine what it would be like to have another 4 years of Secretary of Labor Scalia, the investigations that would be launched, the attacks. This would be an opportunity for our opponents to destroy the labor movement. So we have to do everything we can. And we know that if we win Ohio and we make some changes to the electoral map that we saw in 2016, that we can be successful. So you are in the heart of it. I don't need to tell you how important your state is, but what I will say is that the main difference that I have seen this election and what we saw in 2016 is really just the strong enthusiasm that we see from union members and union officers and activists like yourself for the record of Vice President Biden and what it would mean to have him in the Oval Office. And, you know, we have to just get to the brass tacks of talking to every single member. The most important thing where we are in this process right now is to make sure that every single voter has a plan to vote. The polls are something that we do not really look at in this campaign. There's only one poll that matters, and that is the polls of elections and ballots. And I can tell you right now, we are seeing great numbers in early voting, great numbers when it comes in to mail-in voting. And we've just got to continue that every single day for the next 39 days. We need to make sure that at every single local level that we are talking to our members, that we're making sure that they have a plan to vote, that they get that ballot banked. We want to make sure our ballots are in, whether that's done through early voting or whether that's done through mail-in voting. And then we're focused on our friends. Then we're focused on our family. We all know what organizing is. We all know what that one-to-one contact is. And yes, we're not able to go knock on the door. We're not able to have that discussion like we can at the workplace. But we can do it the same way by having those one-on-one conversations over the phone, through text messaging, through social media. We have just got to do everything we can to ensure that all of our members have made a plan to vote, have cast that ballot, and have done everything they can to ensure that Joe Biden and Senator Harris are successful. So, you know, just a couple things about the campaign. We are feeling confident about where we are in this race. From the very beginning, we have felt that this race was going to be close and tight. And what we have found is when we do look at the polls, we are up, but it is tight. And we are looking at this race, I think, in such a better perspective and a better lens than we did in 2016. And no one, absolutely no one, is taking anything for granted. Every single day, this campaign is working to make sure that in every single battleground state, that we are working with every single core constituency to get out the vote and to bank those ballots. So, you know, we're, again, not a campaign that focuses on polls. What we focus on are results, and we focus on the fact that every single day we are beating our opponent when it comes to turning out our vote, but that has got to continue. We know he's pushing his people to, despite what he says, to go, he denigrates the Postal Service publicly, and we've seen that that has an impact with some communities, and then he turns right around and tells his own supporters to use the Postal Service. Now, coming from the National Association of Letter Carriers and my brothers and sisters, I know that you're going to do everything that you can, and you will make sure that every ballot gets returned. We have the full faith and confidence in you, and we look forward to the day that we can help put a Postmaster General in place that completely supports, understands, and respects the Postal Service. But, you know, we have got to make sure, again, that all of our brothers and sisters are doing everything they can to get those ballots banked. I just wanted to, you know, to say thank you to the entire movement for what you have done to really support the Democratic Party over the last 4 years. We've all been waiting for this time. We've all been waiting to get to this race. But it all started, with the success that we saw in 2018 in the midterm elections, winning back the House. It all starts, at the local level where we see state legislatures and gubernatorial races flipping the right way. And the only way that that was going to happen was a re-engagement of the labor movement. And I think that, you've seen a Democratic Party that has redoubled its efforts in showing the respect that the labor movement deserves. And, again, we look forward to the day that we can have an administration that is going to make sure that everyone has the right to join a union, that everybody has the right to collectively bargain. So, on behalf of the DNC, on behalf of the Biden campaign, we thank you for the work that you've done over the last 4 years. And we just ask that over the next 39 days, that you do absolutely everything within your power to talk to your brothers and sisters and make sure that they come out and that they vote early and that they vote by mail, and that they ask their friends and family to come out and vote early and vote by mail and support Vice President Biden and Senator Harris. So brothers and sisters, again, I wish I could be with you this evening. And I know that you're going to do a fantastic job in these last 39 days. And so I thank you for your time, and have a safe and good evening. And we'll see you on the other side of this when we win. Take care, brothers and sisters.
Congratulations to the Cincinnati Labor Council on 50 years of unity and solidarity. Hi, brothers and sisters. I'm State Representative Jessica Miranda, and I wanted to drop by to tell you how proud I am to work for you each and every single day here in Columbus at the state capitol. Workers' rights and the dignity of work is something that we fight for every day through policy and legislation. So I just wanted to tell you congratulations on 50 years of stellar leadership, and keep up the great work. I'm here fighting with you.
Sisters and brothers, my name is Stephanie Summerall Dumas, your Hamilton County Commissioner. I want to congratulate you on the 50th celebration of unity and solidarity. And just as I thought, I got my DNA test back today, and I have union in my blood.
Before we continue with our program, we want to say goodbye to those that joined us via Facebook streams. Thank you for logging in, and we do hope that you enjoyed the program. This last year, our local filmmakers, Julia Reichert and Stephen Bogner, won the Academy Award for Best Documentary, American Factory. And now is the time to announce the winners of this very cool American Factory movie poster signed by the filmmakers, Julia and Steve. We have all of tonight's attendees represented in this little fishbowl. And we have 4 posters to raffle off, and they're big, so we hope you have some wall real estate for them. All right, so without any further ado, not looking, here are the winners. Okay, I've got 1. Whoops, got 2. All right, here we go. James Robinson gets the first poster. Congratulations. Next. GCBT. You've won a poster. All right. 2 more left. Ooh. Okay. Oh, CGOHC. Okay. And the final one. They're both signed. It's really cool. All right, here we go. AFSCME, Local 1543. Congratulations, everybody. They're beautiful posters. For 40 years, Deborah Schneider has been organizing workers. She started as a clerical worker and member leader of 925, the working women's organization in Boston. She then became an organizer for 9to5's New York City affiliate, Women Office Workers. After she helped form her current union, District 925, with the Service Employees International Union, Debbie became a union organizer, first in Chicago and then landing in Cincinnati in 1984. She spent 20 years organizing and raising a family in Cincinnati, eventually elected the national president of District 925, and in 2005, she moved to Washington, D.C. to take on national roles at SEIU, including creating their union's global organizing program and Leaders in Action for Justice program. Earlier, Renita Jones-Street, AFSCME Ohio Council 8, and Inga McLaughlin, Financial Secretary, Amalgamated Transit Union Local 627, joined me in a conversation with Debbie about the movement and the not yet released documentary that you're about to see in the next few minutes. Hey, Debbie, how you doing?
Great. How are you, Denise?
Doing great. I'm so happy you're here, and I am not alone. I'm with Renita and Inga, two powerful labor leaders who know about your film and talk to you about this incredible film. I had an opportunity to see it and learn about the 9to5 movement, and you and your colleagues were instrumental in really changing office workers forever.
Thank you, Debbie, for joining us. My question to you is, what was it like as a woman to organize in the early 80s?
There were not women as leaders in the labor movement. There was not an organizing culture in the labor movement, and the labor movement was in decline. And so it was pretty lonesome, I would say. The workers were not used to unions. Secretaries and unions didn't mix. But there was a lot of potential. And I was welcomed by the leadership of the Labor Council, but being about the only woman there was hard because the only way they knew how to make you feel welcome was to joke around with you, and their jokes were inevitably sexist. They were well-meaning, but it made me feel outside every single time. And because there wasn't an organizing part of the labor movement at the time down in Cincinnati, I really had to find organizers in other kinds of progressive movements as my group of friends. We also formed a Coalition of Labor Union Women chapter right around this time to bolster up women who were leading in their unions.
Yes, Debbie. Did you organize women issues around University of Cincinnati?
Yes, that's what I came to do, is to organize the office workers at the University of Cincinnati. And, you know, the question of did we organize around women's issues, people ask us that a lot. Women's issues, it's not like we came in with some feminist checklist that we were going to impose on anybody. That's not what we were about. We were good organizers. We were looking for the issues that would attract the most interest, that would motivate people, that would energize people to take action, because that's really what forming a union requires. And so low pay, dead end jobs, health insurance, are those women's issues? You bet they are, but they're issues for everybody. University of Cincinnati, we were organizing was about 85% women. And one of my favorite examples of this was we were bargaining our first contract, because we've been organizing for years to win the right to bargain. We were bargaining our first contracts, and the two other unions on campus had agreed to a pretty substantial concession in sick leave. And the university said, well, they took it, you have to take it, because we need everybody on the same system. And I had never seen an issue that sparked so much rage truthfully, as trying to take away sick leave from women. And we had been trying to get them ready to take direct action at work, including strikes. And we had been doing sort of escalating baby steps where they never really had to leave their desk. They could sign a petition, they could wear a sticker, this and that. We decided, well, sick leave is going to be the thing. And we told them they had to come to a central location on each campus and cast a ballot about sick leave and write on there what they used their sick leave for. And it was the first time that these workers had ever seen how much support there was for the union, because they were snaking all around the buildings, lined up the way you see voting, people lining up to cast their ballots about their sick leave. And people were like, you're for the union, you're for the union, you would come and give up your lunchtime for your union. And so our first strike was a 1-hour strike, because they had sort of practiced that. They saw how much power there was. And we, our bargaining team read from the notes from people's ballots about what they used their sick leave for. And the employer had told us, there's no way you're not taking this. And we actually prevailed.
What do you hope people take away from this film after seeing it?
That's a great question. I hope they take away that you don't have to be Norma Ray to make change. You don't have to be the one biggest, baddest, bravest person. That each one of us, if we join together with like-minded people in our workplaces, we can make big change. And not only in one workplace, but it can take hold all across the country. And it doesn't have to be a famous action. Like you said, Denise, I never knew about this, but we, secretaries all over this country, organized to make change. And it worked, and it worked permanently. Organizations may come and go, but the changes you make in society stick forever. And it just takes regular people banding together and taking action to make it happen.
So what do you think, Debbie, is different about workers organizing now as opposed to when you did it?
I think, to me, there are two big differences when I think back on it. In the 1980s, we in the labor movement were still counting on our labor laws to be the avenue through which we gained power, because for decades it had been. But the employers had decided to start breaking the law massively all over the country. And in the end, who was left out of that labor law was so significant. And the sanctions against employers for what would happen to them if they violated the law was so tiny that the laws no longer became the way for workers to exercise collective power. And so today, what I see people organizing, they're not organizing narrowly in one bargaining unit under the National Labor Relations Act. They are doing much more movement building across employers around essential workers, the fight for 15 for low-wage workers, that we are not constrained anymore by this law, which served workers in the 50s and 60s, but stopped serving workers by the 80s. And I think that the labor movement and our affiliated movements have come to terms with that, and you see energy moving in different ways. The other thing I would say is that in the labor movement, when I was organizing, well, we might have supported some other progressive movements going on in town. It was really sort of an individual choice. I could go to an action, or I could do this or that. The whole concept of intersectionality, where the environmental movement needs the labor movement as much as the labor movement needs the environment movement, the Black Lives movement and the civil rights movement and the women's movement and the labor movement can't thrive without each other, that we are interconnected and we have to function that way. It's a necessity, is a huge, huge step forward from when I started organizing, and is going to create power in institutions and structures that we can't imagine quite yet, but I'm confident will happen.
We all need to roll up our sleeves now. There's a lot of work ahead of us, and seeing you and what you've done has been amazing and inspiring. So thank you so much for your time, Debbie. We really appreciated it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I just so appreciate all of you in Cincinnati, Ohio. I spent the bulk of my adult life there. Everything I learned about organizing, I learned in Cincinnati, Ohio. I love that city. And it meant a lot to me to be asked to be here tonight. I probably attended 15 or 20 COPE dinners in my time there, and I know this one's going to be really different, but I'm just thrilled to be able to be part of it. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you, Debbie. Thank you so much. That was great. So that brings us now to this moment. This year, Stephen Bogner and Julia Reichert's latest documentary film, 9 to 5, The Story of a Movement, is about women office workers, secretaries, and their struggle to organize in the 60s and 70s. Now, that movement inspired the hit comedy film 9 to 5 with Jane Fonda and Dolly Parton. In the year of Me Too, racial tensions, and a perilous Supreme Court battle, and also the nomination of the first Black female vice president, we felt 9 to 5 not only serves as a strong story to tell, but is timed to give some love from the choir that it richly deserves. So this film took 8 years to make, which was long before the Me Too movement started. Another interesting coincidence is that this in-person COPE dinner was supposed to be in June, but because of COVID, we had to move it. We picked a random date. The date was set before we knew about the film, before we knew about 9 to 5. Here we sit on September 25th, 9 to 5. Tonight, we're gonna sit back, we're gonna relax, and we're gonna enjoy 9 to 5, the story of a movement. Enjoy.